Nobody from my family came for my wedding. They all said they were busy with work. But when I went online, I saw them having a barbecue party at Mom's backyard. I didn't confront them. What happened next was rather unexpected. I will tell you everything. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and comment where you are watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. I'd never been the kind of man to expect much from anyone. You grow up in a family like mine, and eventually you learn that love comes with conditions, mostly financial ones. Still, as I stood at the front of that small chapel in late April, sweat clinging to my back beneath my tux, I held out a stubborn kind of hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this one day, my day, would be the exception. I kept glancing at the entrance, expecting to see someone, anyone, from my family walk through those wooden doors. My mother with her usual critical eye and tight purse-lipped smile. My sister, with her fake lashes and louder than necessary laugh. Even my cousin Devin, who only ever called when he needed a favor. But the doors never opened for them. Only guests from my wife's side trickled in, smiling politely, nodding as if they understood how hard I was working to hold it together. When the music started and my bride appeared, radiant and soft-eyed, my heart should have been full. Instead, it cracked, just slightly, under the weight of those empty chairs. I smiled for her, for the cameras, for the future I wanted so desperately to claim. But there was a silence inside me, a hollow thrum that no vows could quite drown out. As she walked toward me, her father proudly escorting her down the aisle, I nodded, blinked back tears, and told myself this was still enough. That I didn't need my family here. But I did. God help me, I did. The reception was modest but beautiful. Candles flickering, soft jazz playing, laughter rising from every table except the one reserved for my family. I tried to ignore it, to lean into the love that surrounded us. Her aunts and uncles danced, her friends toasted, and my wife kept shooting me those worried glances, her hand never far from mine. At one point, she whispered, "Maybe they got held up?" I smiled and nodded like a man who hadn't already checked his phone 5 times during the ceremony. No missed calls, no texts, just silence. I didn't want to ruin the night, so I danced. I held my wife close during our first dance, my hand steady on her back, her breath warm against my neck. I forced myself to laugh at jokes I didn't hear, to thank people whose names I wouldn't remember. I posed for photos, sipped champagne, and told myself that maybe tomorrow I'd wake up and this wouldn't hurt so much. But later that night, when we were finally alone in the hotel suite, her dress in a pile on the floor and my tux halfway undone, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. It was all there. A family barbecue. Burgers on the grill, drinks in hand, paper plates stacked high with ribs and corn on the cob. Mom's backyard, sunny and loud, everyone dressed for spring. My sister in a crop top and shorts, grinning next to her boyfriend. My cousin Devin holding a beer, his arm around someone I didn't recognize. The caption read, "Family time is the best time." Posted 4 hours ago, right in the middle of my wedding. I didn't speak. I just stared at the screen, thumb frozen above the photo. My wife noticed the change in my face. "What is it?" she asked, her voice cautious. I turned the phone toward her. Her mouth parted, then closed again. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Something broke in me then. Not all at once, but in pieces, like a window cracking slowly under pressure until it gives way entirely. I felt like a fool. Like some pitiful kid who kept trying to be good enough, helpful enough, rich enough to earn love that was never freely given. They'd lied. Said they were working. Said it was too far, too expensive, bad timing. But the photos didn't lie. They didn't just skip my wedding. They threw a party on the same damn day, and they wanted me to see it. I didn't cry. Not right away. Instead, I got up, walked into the bathroom, and sat on the edge of the tub in my tux pants and white undershirt. I stared at the tile floor, trying to make sense of the choice they'd made. Because it was a choice. They could have come. They just didn't want to. And I, like an idiot, had spent the past year making sure my mom's mortgage was covered, that my sister didn't drop out of college, that mom had spending money every month to keep her lights on and her fridge full. I'd spent years being the fallback plan, the one who always showed up. But on the one day I asked for nothing but their presence, they didn't show at all. My wife eventually joined me, sitting on the cold bathroom tile in her robe, her arm looping around mine. We didn't speak. I think she knew that words would only make it worse. That night, I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling, playing every family memory like a slideshow in my head. The birthdays I paid for, the hospital bills I covered, the bail I posted, the time I drove 6 hours in the rain when Mom said she didn't feel right, only to find out she just wanted help fixing the washing machine. I did it all because I thought that's what family was for. But apparently, it was a one-way street. The next morning, I didn't return their messages. My mom had texted, "Hope everything went well. Love you." My sister sent, "We'll celebrate soon, promise," as if that changed anything. I didn't reply. I didn't block them either. I just let the messages sit there, unread, like rotting fruit. I didn't feel anger yet, just emptiness. The kind that doesn't scream. The kind that settles in your chest like smoke, making it hard to breathe, hard to speak. But I knew something had changed. Something final. The part of me that always forgave them had died the moment I saw those photos. The hardest part about walking away wasn't the silence. I'd gotten used to that from them. Silence after doing favors, silence after holidays passed without a call, silence anytime they didn't need something. No, the hardest part was how normal it all felt once I stopped. Like I'd just slipped out of a coat that had always been too heavy, but I'd worn anyway, out of duty, out of hope. For the first time in years, I wasn't budgeting around other people's problems. I wasn't checking my account for my mom's mortgage draft. I wasn't waiting for my sister's monthly text that always began with, "Hey, big bro," and ended with a Venmo request. I just breathed. I didn't announce it. There was no grand confrontation, no screaming match, no Facebook post calling out their betrayal. That would have been too easy and too small. Instead, I quietly called the bank and removed myself from Mom's mortgage payments. I'd been paying the balance for years, justifying it with the idea that she raised me, that this was my way of giving back. I hadn't realized how lopsided it had become until I stood in that hotel bathroom and felt the weight of her absence at my wedding pressing down on me like a cinder block. The woman I'd been sacrificing for couldn't be bothered to show up, but she could flip burgers and laugh with the rest of them while I said, "I do," without a single familiar face in the crowd. Then came my sister. She was halfway through her junior year at NYU, coasting on scholarships and the cushion of my bank account. Rent, books, food, I'd covered all of it. At first, I told myself it was temporary, just until she found her footing. But months turned into years, and I was still the invisible ATM she swore she appreciated but never called unless she needed help. I logged into her school's payment portal and removed my auto pay. The rent transfer? Gone. No warning. Just a clean break. If she wanted to stand on her own 2 feet, then this was her chance. I was done giving people everything just to be forgotten when it mattered. 3 days later, she texted me, "Hey, my rent didn't go through. Can you check it?" I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "You'll need to handle it on your own now. Things have changed." No explanation. No room for negotiation. She didn't respond. The last thing I cut was the stipend I sent Mom each month. $600, like clockwork. No thank yous. No check-ins. Just a quiet expectation that the money would land on the first of the month. I used to joke with my wife that I had 2 households, ours, and the one I wasn't living in but was still funding. The truth was sadder. I'd bought my way into being needed. And now, I was done paying the toll. My wife never pressured me. She didn't celebrate when I told her what I'd done. She just nodded, kissed my shoulder, and said, "You gave them every chance. They chose not to show up." And that was it. That quiet validation meant more than any apology from my family ever could. Still, I kept waiting for something. Maybe guilt, maybe grief, but all I felt was a strange kind of clarity. Like I'd finally stopped trying to fix a house that had burned down years ago. The ashes had been there all along. I just refused to see them. I went to work. I came home. My wife and I made dinner together. We sat on the couch in the evenings, her legs draped over mine, the TV humming softly in the background. Life went on, and for the first time, it didn't revolve around what my family needed. Then came the 6th week. It was a Sunday. The sun was bleeding through the blinds, and my wife was folding laundry while humming along to a Stevie Wonder song. I was scrolling through my emails when my phone lit up with an incoming call. Mom. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering. It rang 5 times. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, her voice sharp and uneven. I don't know what your wife said to you, but ever since you got married, you've been neglecting this family. This isn't you. She's changing you. There was a pause, then a softer tone. We need to talk. I'm still your mother. I played it twice. The first time, I clenched my jaw so tight I thought my molars might crack. The second time, I felt nothing. Not even anger. Just confirmation. That night, I called her back. She answered on the first ring. Finally, she said, like I owed her something. What's going on with you? I saw the barbecue, I said flatly. There was a pause. What? The photos. On Instagram. During my wedding. I don't know what you think you saw, but, Mom, I interrupted. Don't lie. Everyone was there. You said you were working. You all said you couldn't come. But you were in the backyard, eating ribs and laughing. You chose that over me. So no, this isn't about my wife. This is about respect. And you lost mine. She was quiet. Then came the tears. I made a mistake, she said. We didn't think it would matter that much. It's not like it was a big wedding. We figured we'd celebrate later. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how absurd it sounded. You think later makes up for that? You're being cruel. No, I said, my voice calm. I've just stopped being useful. She sniffled. Please, just don't cut us off. We're still your family. No, I said again. You were my family. You stopped acting like it long before I stopped paying for it. And with that, I ended the call. Grief doesn't always come as a gut punch. Sometimes it's just a slow, nagging ache. Like a splinter beneath your skin you forget until you brush it wrong. In the weeks after that final call with my mother, I kept waiting for that ache to wear off. But it didn't. It settled in the background of my days like a hum I couldn't silence. I'd make my morning coffee and remember how she used to drink hers. Black, no sugar, always a little too bitter. I'd walk past the university library downtown and think of my sister buried in textbooks, oblivious to the fact that someone else had been breaking their back to keep her there. I wasn't heartless. I was human. And being human meant missing people who had never truly shown up for me. Still, I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't answer when my cousin Devin finally decided to reach out with a suspiciously cheerful, "Hey big guy? Long time, huh?" text message. It didn't take a genius to know that Mom was using him to gauge my temperature. He never messaged unless someone needed money or a ride or a place to crash. I read it, didn't respond, and kept going. It was strange how easy it was becoming to live without the people I'd once bent over backward for. One afternoon, I came home to find my wife on the porch, talking softly into her phone. She gave me a look as I approached, hesitant, guarded, and quickly ended the call. I didn't ask who it was. I already knew. They're still trying? I asked, sliding my keys onto the hook inside the door. She nodded. Your mom called. Again. This time she asked if I could talk some sense into you. I let out a dry laugh, dropping into the couch with a thud. Of course she did. Because God forbid I have a mind of my own. My wife sat beside me, curling her legs beneath her. She's scared. The money stopped. The support stopped. Now she wants to spin the story. What story? I snapped. That I woke up one day and just decided to cut them off for no reason? That you manipulated me into it? She really thinks that little of me. She thinks what people like her always think, she said calmly. That they're owed something, and anyone who disagrees is either disloyal or brainwashed. That was when the anger started to take root. Not just the ache, not just the disappointment, but a hot, biting anger. They couldn't accept that I had limits. That after decades of carrying them, I finally put the load down. And rather than acknowledge the burden they placed on me, they chose to call me cold, distant, changed. They needed a villain, and my wife was the easiest target. Later that week, my mother left another voicemail. This one was different. It started with sniffles and shifted to outright sobs. I raised you. I took care of you. And now you treat me like I'm nothing? After all these years? Just because we couldn't come to your wedding. Her voice cracked, then sharpened. I see what's happening. Your wife's turning you against your blood. She doesn't understand how we do things." That voicemail played over in my head for days. I listened to it more than I should have, not because I doubted myself, but because I needed to hear the manipulation in her voice, the subtle shift from guilt to blame. She was painting herself as the victim in a story she created, and my wife, my kind, loyal, gentle wife, was the scapegoat. That was when I knew I had to say something. Not for closure, not even for clarity, but for my own peace. I called my mother on a rainy Thursday evening, the kind of rain that clung to the windows and made the whole house feel still. She answered, surprised. "I didn't think you'd call back. I need you to stop blaming my wife," I said, without preamble. "She had nothing to do with my decision." "Then why are you acting like this?" she asked, her voice already rising. "Why are you treating us like strangers?" "Because that's how you acted on the most important day of my life," I replied, steady. "You made your choice, Mom." I just finally believed it. She tried to argue, to backpedal, to cry again. We didn't know it meant so much. It was just one day, we thought. "No, you didn't," I cut in. "You didn't think about me at all. You didn't even pretend to care. You threw a barbecue on my wedding day. And then you lied about it." She went quiet. I heard her breathing, short and fast. "Then, you're being cruel." "No," I said softly. "I'm being clear." I let the silence hang there until she broke it. "So what now? You're just done with us? After everything?" "Yes," I said, "because everything only ever went one way." She tried to say more, but I hung up. Not out of rage, not even out of spite. I just didn't have anything else to say. I had finally said it all. That night, I held my wife a little tighter. She didn't ask about the call. She didn't need to. We'd both lived with the ghost of that absence long enough. And now, I was ready to let it go. I didn't expect the apology. Not really. But when it came, it wasn't in the form of a phone call or a handwritten note or even a conversation that acknowledged what had actually happened. No, it came in the form of a text from my sister, a week after I confronted our mother. A simple message, wrapped in fake casualness like she wasn't scrambling to restore the bridge she helped burn. "Hey, Mom's really upset. She says you won't talk to her. I know things got messy, but can we all just move on?" Move on. That was the phrase she used. Like it had all been a misunderstanding. Like I had simply overreacted and now it was time to return to regularly scheduled programming. Me paying bills, her pretending we were close, and Mom acting like love was transactional and I owed her a lifetime of interest payments. I stared at the message for a long time, wondering if she even believed the words she wrote, or if she, like the rest of them, was just following the money trail. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because I already knew what this was. This wasn't about regret. It was about access. They'd tasted life without my help, and now that things were tighter, harder, lonelier, they were hoping that a lukewarm apology would be enough to reel me back in. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I'd spent my whole life mistaking responsibility for love. I thought that if I gave enough, sacrificed enough, showed up enough, eventually they'd love me in return. But the truth was simpler and crueler. They only loved what I gave them, not who I was. 3 days later, my mother called again. This time I answered, because part of me still needed to hear it, to know if there was any sincerity left. She launched right into it, voice trembling in that well-rehearsed way that always used to get to me. "I just want my son back," she said. "I miss you. I miss hearing your voice. I hate how things ended." I didn't say anything. I wanted her to keep going, to dig deeper, to get to the part where she actually took responsibility. "And I know," she continued, "that we made a mistake. Not coming to the wedding, it was wrong. I didn't think it would mean that much to you." That was the apology. That was the closest she came. A vague admission tied with an excuse. No mention of the barbecue. No acknowledgement of the lies. Just a soft half-truth she hoped would be enough. "You didn't think it would mean much?" I said slowly, my voice flat. "I mean, it's not like you even had a big wedding. We thought we'd have a celebration later, when things were less hectic. You had a party. The same day? At your house." Her voice got tight. "We didn't plan it to hurt you. But you did not plan it either," I shot back. "You prioritized it over showing up for me. That's the part you won't say." She sighed heavily, and then, without missing a beat, The conversation shifted so smoothly, it almost stunned me. Listen, honey, I've been having trouble with the mortgage. Without your help, the bank's been calling. I didn't want to bring it up, but there it was. She hadn't called to make things right. She'd called because the financial consequences were finally catching up. The sincerity was a mask, barely holding back the desperation underneath. I'm not responsible for your mortgage anymore, I said. You've helped for years. Why stop now? Because the only time I hear from you is when you need something, I said, voice sharper now. You don't miss me. You miss the money. That's not true, she snapped, instantly defensive. You think I raised you just for money? I think you've made it very clear that my value to this family starts and ends with what I can provide. She went quiet. I don't want anything from you, I said. Not anymore. Not guilt, not forgiveness, not fake apologies wrapped in rent requests. Just leave me and my wife alone. There was a pause, long, uncomfortable. You'll regret this, she said quietly. No, I replied. I regret thinking you'd ever treat me like a son, not an investment. And I ended the call. After that, the messages stopped. Not entirely, but enough. There were occasional feelers. Devin sending memes like we were still boys, my sister forwarding family memories, as if those filtered throwback photos could erase everything. But they got no response. I had made myself unreachable, not out of cruelty, but out of self-preservation. There's a point where you stop trying to be understood and start choosing to be okay with being misunderstood. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want them to suffer. I just wanted peace, real peace. The kind that doesn't come with a bill. And for the first time in my life, I had it. It was my wife who noticed the change first. One night, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, she turned to me during a commercial break and said, "You're lighter." I looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" "You carry yourself differently," she said. "Like, you're not bracing for something all the time." I thought about that. About the years I spent bracing, waiting for the next crisis, the next bill, the next emotional landmine. And she was right. That tension was gone. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was living. "You gave them every chance," she added gently. "Yeah," I said. And now I'm giving myself one. It started with the Facebook post. Just a vague, passive-aggressive little paragraph my cousin Devin wrote one evening, probably after a few drinks or a call from my mother that left him feeling self-righteous. It read, "Crazy how some folks forget who fed them, raised them, and gave them a roof, just because they got a little wife and a paycheck. Loyalty ain't supposed to expire." It wasn't tagged. No names. Just enough breadcrumbs for anyone in the family to connect the dots. And they did. The likes rolled in. My aunt, my uncle, even my sister dropped a heart emoji like it was a war banner. I didn't comment. I didn't message him. I didn't even take a screenshot. I just stared at it for a long moment, jaw tight, before closing the app and sliding my phone face down on the kitchen counter. The post didn't bother me because it was untrue. It bothered me because it was almost true. Twisted just enough to sound noble to the people who still believed I owed them. That was the thing about guilt. If you weren't careful, other people would weaponize it before you could even name it. They'd make your boundaries look like betrayals, your silence seem like arrogance. And the people who never showed up for you would be the first to tell the world how much you've changed. Later that night, I got a message from my uncle. He wasn't someone I spoke to often. He'd always been on the outskirts of our family drama, dipping in when it suited him and disappearing when things got messy. His text was short, clipped. "Heard you've been turning your back on your blood. Hope it's worth it." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because I knew exactly what he was doing. These weren't check-ins. They were probes. They were trying to see if the door was still cracked open, if I could be guilt back into service. And when they realized it was shut, they flipped the script. "You're ungrateful, selfish, distant, brainwashed." It was easier for them to believe I'd been corrupted than to admit I'd finally woken up. A few days later, my sister called. For once, there was no pretense. No chirpy, "Hey big bro." No mention of classes or weekend plans. Her voice was flat, bordering on bitter. "Mom's not doing well," she said. "What do you want me to do about it?" I asked, not unkindly, but honestly. "She's struggling," she continued. "The mortgage is behind. She's embarrassed. She's crying all the time. I stayed quiet. Do you really hate us that much? She snapped. That got me. Is that what you think this is? I said. You think this is about hate? She didn't respond. I spent years showing up for everyone. I continued. You, Mom, even Devin. I paid bills, covered rent, made sure everyone was okay, even when I wasn't. And when I asked for one thing, your presence on my wedding day, you all threw a damn party instead. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I interrupted. You didn't forget. You didn't get sick. You didn't even lie well. You just didn't care enough to come. We didn't think it was a big deal, she mumbled. And that, I said, is why I'm done. She went silent for a few seconds, then let out a long sigh. You've changed. No, I said. I just stopped pretending that being useful meant being loved. The call ended soon after. No resolution. No real apology. Just another reminder that in their eyes, I had always been the provider first, the person second. Now that the provider was gone, they didn't know what to do with the person. It wasn't just them, though. Word got out. Family, friends, old neighbors, even a few distant relatives I barely remembered started reaching out in small, awkward ways. Liking old photos of me and Mom, sending cryptic, thinking of you messages, trying to nudge me back into the fold. There were whispers about how, ever since he got married, he changed, and how she must be controlling him. My wife heard some of it, too. One of her co-workers pulled her aside and said, I saw your mother-in-law at the market. She said you've driven a wedge in the family. She told me that night, voice soft but steady. They're painting me as the reason you're gone. I know, I said. That's easier than admitting the truth. She leaned against me then, arms wrapped around my waist, and whispered, I'm sorry. I shook my head. Don't be. You didn't take me from them. You just showed me I never really belonged. I wish I could say it didn't hurt. That cutting ties brought peace and nothing else. But the truth is, even necessary endings come with grief. There were nights when I lay awake wondering if I could have handled it differently. If I should have given one more chance. But then I'd remember that empty pew at the wedding, the silence from their end, the laughter on social media, and I'd remember why I walked away. One Saturday morning, months after the calls died down, I ran into an old family friend at the grocery store. Mrs. Thompson, my mother's neighbor for over 20 years. She recognized me instantly, eyes widening as she waved me over. Haven't seen you in a while, she said. Your mother talks about you all the time. I just smiled, nodding politely. She misses you, she added, leaning in like she was delivering some grand secret. Family's all we've got. I nodded again, placing a box of cereal in the cart. You're right, I said. Family is all we've got. She looked pleased, like she'd gotten through to me. But I didn't clarify. I didn't explain that sometimes family isn't the people you're born to. It's the ones who show up, even when it's inconvenient. It's the ones who don't need to be paid, begged, or convinced to care. Let them think what they want. I knew the truth. Months passed. The air changed, softened. Summer slipped into early fall, and the world moved on. But the silence from my family didn't. At first, it was loud, accusations, guilt trips, Facebook posts coated in venom. Then it dulled into avoidance, the kind of silence that wasn't peaceful but pointed, like they were all holding their breath, waiting for me to apologize for drawing a boundary. But I didn't, because I wasn't sorry. I had nothing left to give them, and for once in my life, I wasn't trying to earn their approval with sacrifice. There were still moments when the absence tugged at me. I'd see an older woman in the grocery store, inspecting produce the way my mom used to, and I'd feel that pang in my chest. The echo of a bond one kept pretending still had weight. Or my phone would buzz, and for a split second, my brain would flash with my sister's voice, some distant memory of us sneaking into the kitchen late at night for cereal and whispered arguments about cartoons. But nostalgia is a liar. It shows you the good in high definition and leaves the rest in static. And the truth was, those memories were the exception. The rest was me being needed, not wanted. What surprised me most was how normal life began to feel without them. I thought cutting off my family would make me feel unmoored, adrift. Instead, I felt steady. For the first time, the emotional ledger wasn't tipped against me. My wife and I fell into a rhythm. Sunday pancakes, shared playlists, quiet evenings on the porch. There was no weight hanging over my head, no unread texts asking for help disguised as check-ins, no calls that started with "How are you?" and ended with "Can you cover this month?" And yet, every now and then, I'd return to the wedding photos. I'd pull them up late at night when my wife was asleep beside me, her breathing soft and even. I'd swipe through those captured moments, her in her dress, eyes bright, my hand wrapped tightly around hers. The guests clapping, our friends laughing, the dance floor full. But then there was the table. That one table, set for people who never arrived. 5 chairs, dressed in white linen and trimmed with gold, empty as the day they were placed. I never deleted those photos. I couldn't. They were proof, not just of who wasn't there, but of the lie I'd been telling myself for years. That if I kept giving, kept showing up, they'd eventually do the same. But that table taught me everything I needed to know. That empty chairs don't lie. One afternoon, as I sat flipping through the album, a message came through. From my sister. "Just wanted you to know I'm moving out of state for grad school. Got a partial scholarship, working the rest out on my own. Thought you'd want to know." There was no ask, no preamble, no attempt at guilt or manipulation. Just a few short lines. I didn't respond right away. I let it sit. I wasn't sure if it was a peace offering or a passive farewell. Maybe both. A week later, I replied, "I hope it works out for you. I really do." She didn't say anything back. And that was fine. Not every ending has closure. Sometimes the best you get is a soft landing instead of a crash. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. The last time I heard from my mother, it was a voicemail. Her voice was tired. Not angry. Not begging. Just tired. "I know you don't want to hear from me," she said. "I just hope, maybe someday, we can sit down. No strings. No money. Just talk. You're still my son." She didn't ask for anything. Didn't blame my wife. She just sounded small. And for a moment, I felt that tug again. That old reflex to go fix things. To believe that maybe this time would be different. But I didn't call her back. I saved the voicemail, though. Not out of hope. Out of record. A reminder that even people who've hurt you can still sound like home. And that's what makes it so dangerous. There's something people don't tell you about setting boundaries. The loneliness that follows isn't always about losing people. Sometimes, it's about finally facing how little they ever truly saw you. That's the grief. Not their absence, but the truth of their presence. The family I grew up with might share my blood, my name, my history, but they never saw me. Not really. They saw the son who paid, the brother who showed up, the cousin who bailed them out. And when I stopped being those things, they stopped knowing what to do with me. And yet, I don't hate them. I don't wish them pain or poverty or some karmic balancing of the scales. I just wish they'd shown up. That's it. But they didn't. And the chairs are still empty. They'll stay that way. Because now, I know the difference between being used and being loved. I know what it feels like to pour myself into people who only show up when they're thirsty. I know what it costs to keep buying love that never arrives. And I've paid enough. Have you ever had to cut off family to protect your peace? Sometimes, love isn't enough when the respect and effort don't go both ways. Tell me, what would you have done if your family skipped your wedding for a backyard barbecue? Share your thoughts, your stories, or even just a word of support in the comments. Let's talk about the hard choices we make to choose ourselves. See you soon in the next story.